This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Shalom Aleichem, Baruch Hashem, we're experiencing a Chadesh Yomeinu Kekedem. After a little break. Welcome to everyone, welcome to our viewers on Torah Anytime. I'm going to dedicate the Shir to the Refuah Shalema of Dosa Bas Sarah, to her wonderful family, to the Hatzlacha of her son Ben Zion and the rest of his family, and to Refuah Shalema to Ben Zion Ben Chaya, a dear friend who needs Rachmei Shomayim. In Mitzvah Hashem, we have an exciting Shir, riddle, stories, as much as time will permit. In Mitzvah Hashem, let's start Parsha Acharei Mot Kedoshim. Let's start with our first riddle. This one carries 3 points. Where in the Parsha, or anywhere in the Torah, do we find bullfights? You know, in Spain they still do that, right? Is there anywhere in the Torah that the Torah discusses bullfights? Shor Nogeach is not a fight. It's a chutzpahdik show that's decided to gore someone. This is a test. Who did Shnai Meka ve'echal Targum? It's still Friday, there's still plenty of hours. I know, fine. You want to do it lechatchila just before Shabbos. Or maybe somebody remembers from last year. The surprising answer is, Parsha Acharei Mot Kedoshim says, Uvechukoseihem lo telechu. What does that mean? What is Uvechukoseihem lo telechu? Rashi says, Dvarim hachakukim lahem. There are things which they all do. Kegon, for example, taratiraot ve'itztadiot. Circus and a stadium. Siftei Chachamim explains Rashi and says, what does that mean, stadium? Ve'itztadiot, stadiums, that means schok shemasitim es hashvarim, they tempt the bulls, ush'ar chayos and other animals, lenogcham ulehilachem ze im ze. They make animals fight with each other. That's what the Torah meant when it says uvechukoseihem lo telechu, bullfights in the Torah, and that is the answer to our question. Since you did so well in the first question, let's ask you another. A long list in Acharei Mot Kedoshim of the Arayos, people that, certain relations, people that are not allowed to get married. Strange question. We know that one is not allowed to get married with his own grandmother. Right? Question to everyone? Great. Can it be that one is allowed to get married to his grandmother? Aboisai, can one ever get married to his grandmother? No such thing. The Rambam begs to differ. Rambam! Shulchan Aruch brings it. Yoredei Siman Reish Samech Tet Seif Chet we learn. There are arayos mentioned in the Torah. Don't get married to your mother. There's shniot. Shniot are those relations that are not mentioned in the Torah, but they're still your family members. For example, your grandmother, they are called shniot. Shniot lo gazru an the ger. A convert, midin deoraisa, is allowed to convert, and then his mother, let's say, converts with him, or converts later. The convert is allowed to go and marry his own mother. However, Chazal say, don't do this. Because people will say, oh, that's strange. When he was a goy, he wasn't allowed to get married to his mother. Now that he's Jewish, he's allowed to. Banu mikedusha chamura lekedusha kala. The kedusha of the goyim, as if, is greater than the kedusha of Klal Yisrael, and therefore Chazal said, don't do it. Even though technically speaking, as soon as he converts, he no longer is considered her son. This is not his mother, it's only biological mother, not a halachic one. So Chazal said, don't do this. But that's only to those mentioned in the Torah. The grandmother is not mentioned in the Torah, the Chazal never gathered on them, and therefore the ger will be allowed to get married to his grandmother, and anyone who is the shniot, as far as arayos goes, the ger will be able to get married to them. He can marry a woman, and he can marry her granddaughter. They both converted. He will be able to marry them, a tremendous chiddush. And if that's not enough, we just said one is not allowed to get married to his own mother. That's pashut, right? Pashut. And when is one allowed to get married to his mother? To his sister? To his daughter? Can it be? Maybe I'm pulling your leg. I don't think so. Rambam, Hilchos Isurei Bia, Perek Yud Dalet, Halacha Yud Zayin. Eved Knaani, he is in a very interesting halachic state. He is hovering around. He left the Goyim. The Goyim are not allowed to get married to their mother, to their daughter, to their sister, but he's no longer a Goy. He's an Eved. But he still didn't come into Kedushas Klal Yisrael. So he doesn't have the prohibitions of the Goy. He doesn't have the prohibitions of the Jew. Says the Rambam, he can go and he can get married to his own mother. What's that? She's not Jewish. But even a Goy is not allowed to. It's one of the 7 mitzvahs Bnei Noach. But he's no longer a Goy. He's an Eved. He is, even though he's chayv in mitzvahs like a woman. But when it comes to this, pille ploim, and that's the answer to our question. And that brings me just to discuss one more thing about Arayos. The Bible critics throughout the generations used a pasuk in Shmuel Perek Beis, Shmuel Beis Perek Aleph, pasuk Chavav. The pasuk says, when David HaMelech is eulogizing Yonatan, Shaul HaMelech's son, he says a pasuk, Tzar li alecha achi Yonatan, na'amta li meod. We had such an intense and close relationship, and then he uses a few words. Nifle'asa ahavas chali, ahavas nashi. Your love to me is greater, is more wonderful than the love of women. And the Bible critics loved using this pasuk. It doesn't smell so good. Doesn't smell good. So what did David HaMelech mean when he said this pasuk? Comes the Rema Mipano, Reb Menachem Azariah, part of the great Mekubal about 500 years ago, and he says something remarkable. We just had an elections, right? So you still remember, even though we had 6 in the last few months. Imagine the person who was elected. We're not talking about politics here, so we don't care who it was. But imagine there's an election, no matter what, in what country, and the person who's elected to office says to his best friend, nah, I don't think I should. I think you should be the president. You should be the prime minister. Nobody does that. The person who's elected appoints his friends, his relatives, people whom he likes to become the ministers in his government. You're going to be treasury minister, and you're going to be education, you're going to be... But no one would ever in his right mind say, you know what? Why don't you step inside? You be the king instead of me. Who does that? No one. Comes Yonatan, son of Shaul HaMelech, and says to David, you should be the king. And David HaMelech says, your love to me is a wonderment. Where does it come from? Nifle'asa ahavas chali. Where'd you get this from? Oh, I see. It's me'ahavas nashim, from the love of women. What women? Your great-grandmother, Yonatan, is who? You're from Shevet Binyamin. Shaul is Binyamin. So your great-grandmother is Rachel. My great-grandmother is Leah. The love between those two women did just that. Rachel loved her sister so much, and he said, you know what, Leah? I'm supposed to get married tomorrow to Yaakov. Here are the simanim, you get married to him. She took something which was hers and said, you know what? You do it. Apparently, David HaMelech says to Yonatan, this is in your genes. Nifle'asa ahavas chali. I don't understand. Where did you get this love to me? How do you do this? It comes from me'ahavas nashim, because our great-grandmothers behaved in the same manner. Now we understand how you did just that. And I think that's just gewaldig. B'zois yavo Aaron el HaKodesh. Aaron is allowed to come into Kodesh HaKodashim when? When? Always. Yom Kippur. Pshat of the Psukim. Rashi. Aaron HaKohen is able to go in, if he does everything listed in the Torah in that right way, once a year, Yom Kippur, comes the Chochmas Adam and brings from the Go'ol Mivilna, his Mechuten, he brings in the name of a Medrash, and he supports the Go'ol Mivilna, that Aaron HaKohen can actually come in whenever he wants. Any day of the year he can come in to Kodesh HaKodashim. Unlike what Rashi says, unlike our normal understanding, but he supports what the Go'ol Mivilna says, and he finishes it by saying that this is what the Goren says. V'toiras emes haita befihu usfatayim yishak. This is perfect. What he says is accurate. Great. Let me ask you a question. Aaron HaKohen, based on this, is able to go into Kodesh HaKodashim whenever he feels like it. How often do you think he went in? Every single day, Shachris, Mincha, Ma'ariv, once a week. What would you do? You're able to get into Kodesh HaKodashim. What would you do? Once a year. That the Torah already says that's what you have to do. The Gaon Mevina says, Aaron was able to go in whenever he felt like it. Thereafter, the next Kohanim Gedolim, only once a year. That's what the Torah discusses, once a year Yom Kippur. Not for Aaron HaKohen. He can go in, B'choles, whenever he feels like it. How often do you think he went in? Never he can't. He has to go in Yom Kippur. Why? Comes a Rav Steinman, Zecher Tzadik Livroch, and says, imagine, Kodesh HaKodashim, the greatest Kedusha there is. You go in and you soak and absorb all the Kedusha and Tahara. Yep, but there's something greater than that. Soita Daf Daled Amud Beis, the Gemara darshans about the Torah, and the Gemara says, Yekarahi mipninim. The Torah is more expensive, more valuable than pearls. More so than a Kohen Gadol that goes in lifnai velifnim. So it's true, going into Kodesh HaKodashim is worth $1 million. Sitting and learning, Amar Abaye and Amar Rava, is worth 10 billion. And therefore, you have to assume Aaron HaKohen never went in except when he was commanded, because there's something greater than going into Kodesh HaKodashim. It's called open up the Gemara and learn. We run to all kinds of places. Aaron HaKohen could have entered the Kodesh HaKodashim and he said, no, I'd rather sit and learn, because the Torah is Yekarahi mipninim. It's more valuable than even a Kohen Gadol, the holiest man in the world, going into Kodesh HaKodashim, the holiest place in the world. So now we go a little into the mode of Musa. Whenever we speak Musa, disclaimer, I'm talking to myself, nothing to do with you. If you want to listen to a private conversation, go ahead. Otherwise, open up your Sfarim and learn. Yekarahi mipninim. The Parsha says, Ish imoy ve'aviv tirau. From here we learn, Moira av. You have to fear your father. One of the descriptions of this, how do you fulfill this mitzvah, is in Shulchan Aruch, Yoredei Siman Reish Mem Seif Beis, and the Shulchan Aruch says, Lo yeshev bim koimoy. Don't sit in your father's seat. The Baal Musa explains, who's your father? Avinu Shebashamayim. Don't sit in your father's seat. Don't sit in the driver's seat. Stay the passenger. Don't think you conduct the word. You are going to lead and conduct this world. It's not up to you. Why did this happen over here? I could have done this better. Let HaKadosh Baruch Hu sit in the driver's seat. Lo yeshev bim koimoy. Don't sit in HaKadosh Baruch Hu's seat and you conduct your own affairs, and let HaKadosh Baruch Hu continue to conduct the world. He knows what he's doing. I think it's an important ha'ara. Now I have a chutzpah tekashayla. I hope this is not recorded. Where did the Shulchan Aruch make a mistake? It's not recorded, right? B'shinui. Where did the Shulchan Aruch make a mistake? It's not my shayla, therefore I feel comfortable asking it. It's the Kotzke Rebbe's question. Where did the Shulchan Aruch make a mistake? The Kotzke Rebbe, in his very sharp style, once said, the Choshen Mishpat, Shin Nun Tes, the Shulchan Aruch rules la halacha, one is not allowed to steal. Said the Shulchan Aruch, what a mistake. What a mistake. The Shulchan Aruch should have written, there's an Indian not to steal. Once you say, you're not allowed to, well, that's not exactly what he meant. We have to analyze it. Sometimes mutar, it's a mitzvah. It's not really so. But once you say, listen, there's an Indian, there's a big Indian not to steal. It's an Indian. Oh. What's the raya to the Kotzke Rebbe? Said the Kotzke Rebbe, look at Shavuos. There's an Indian to stay up the whole night. Allah Hapsuka, and it's not Me'akev, and you're Yoitze Choivas, the Yontef, if you didn't. There's an Indian, it's a big Indian. Everybody stays up. Lo tigzol, when it says don't steal, It's not really what it means. If the Shulchan Aruch would have written, it's a big Indian not to steal, people would stay away. It's a good, it's a very, very good thing. It's an Indian not to steal. But when you say don't, people come up, wait a second, it's not so clear. Want to say something? Sorry. There's a guy in yeshiva who brings a bottle of milk every day to have with his coffee, a cereal. By 10 o'clock in the morning, the bottle is already finished. Every single day. So one day he took a little sticker and he wrote on it, private. Following day, 9:30 is already gone. Following day he writes, please don't use. For personal use only. The following day, 9:15, bottle is empty. So his friend tells him, listen, it's not going to work. You should write Chalav Stam. It's not Chalav Yisrael. Nobody touched that milk for 2 weeks. Listen, Chalav Yisrael is an Indian, Chalav Stam. Yeah. His friend brought an orange every single day to yeshiva. Same thing. Orange disappeared. He wrote on it private, disappeared. He wrote on it, please don't use, disappeared. The following day he wrote on it, Heter Mechira. Heter Mechira! What do I say? Don't steal? No, it's an Indian apparently. It's an Indian. Shulchan Aruch wrote, don't steal. No.
We learn it from Adam Arishon.
What's that?
Hashem said, don't touch the tree.
That's not exactly what he meant. That's a Kal Vachomer. In Yerushalmi, in Yevamos, Perek Yud Beis, Halacha Aleph, the Yerushalmi says, Minhag, Oiker Halacha. Sometimes the minhag has such koyach, as if uproot a halacha. What's the raya to that? There's a halacha psuka. If one borrows money, he must repay. He must pay back. And yet people don't do that. You see, minhag, oiker halacha, the minhag is not to pay. So people borrow money, they don't pay. That's the minhag. You see the minhag, oiker halacha. Oy vey.
One question on this. So, but we can do the same reason for a bunch of times in the Shulchan Aruch. It says don't do this, don't do that, don't do that. So
we said we're talking in the realm of Musa.
Okay.
When it says don't steal, the Shulchan Aruch actually means it. The Torah meant it. Nafka mina lemaise. What's that?
Come back as a puppy.
Shara Gilgulim, Yariza, Perek Lamed Zayin. That's one way. There are other ways that one potentially can come back. Nafka mina lemaise. People work in their office and they pick up the phone belonging to their work and they use it for private use. It's either 12 cents, maybe less. Sometimes it's not even bichlal in today's world where you pay a set amount for the whole month, but you're stealing the time of your work. You're supposed to be working at that time. But it was only 30 seconds. I'm coming on it for. That's called stealing. People print Divrei Torah just to have something to say on the Shabbos table. But if you're doing it using somebody else's printer, ink, paper, it belongs to your boss, not to you. You have to ask permission. Minhag HaMedina. We said before, Minhag Oiker Halacha. That's not true. You have to ask. And if you get permission and the boss says you can do it, you can. If he can't, he doesn't say you can, you cannot.
Ask every time.
No. You can ask.
He says at the beginning of the year you can use the printer.
Of course, you can use it.
You're going to ask every time.
Once he says, this is the policy, I don't mind if you use it. In fact, it's good for me. I'd like to keep my employees happy. Great. But you need to hear from the boss that it belongs to him, that it's muta. But it's less than shve pruta. What I steal? One paper? Less than shve pruta. Chatzi shiur asur min haTorah. One is only punished for stealing shve pruta. But one is still not allowed to steal half a shve pruta. One is punished for eating a kazait chazir. Does that mean I'm allowed to eat half a kazait? No. B'mei dvarim amorim, listen to an unbelievable ma'aser. Rav Kook, zichrono levracha, was once, he needed to do a get. 2 Eidim came, everything was ready, 1 o'clock, they sit down, and one of the Eidim took out from his bag a blank paper and he wanted to write something for himself, a note. And Rav Kook noticed that on the top it said, Bank of Palestine. This guy was a worker for the Bank of Palestine, and apparently he just took something belonging to the bank and he's writing a personal note for himself. Choshed Mishpat Simin Lamed Dalet, we learn that a person who's a gazlan is pasul le'edus. What do? It's probably less than shve puta. Maybe back then it wasn't. I don't know. Rav Kook says, let's daven mincha. Before they get, let's daven mincha. Fine. They got 8 other guys, and Rav Kook stands up. It's now 1:10 p.m., and he starts davening. And he's davening. And he's davening. He davened until 7:30 p.m. At night, you don't write a get. The following day, they already got a better ed. Because he assumed this guy's a Rasha, he can't be part of the get, he didn't want to embarrass him, so he found a very clever way to do it. Even though it's half a puta, if it doesn't belong to you, so even though the Shulchan Aruch made a mistake, the Shulchan Aruch did not make any mistake. The Shulchan Aruch knew what the Torah meant. Lo tigzol means just that. Lo tignov, lo tigzol, that means don't take something which doesn't belong to you. There was once a very sophisticated thief. And he came and he said, you can actually steal from a kal v'chomer. I have a kal v'chomer that will allow you to steal. And what if uma'im, to my own pocket, to my own wallet, you are not allowed to go in, but I am allowed to? That means it's a very strict type of a wallet, right? You're not allowed. You don't have any permission to come into my pocket, but I do. Your pocket that you are allowed to go in, how much more so that I'll be allowed to? Kal v'chomer. Mine is very chamur, it's very strict because you're not allowed to go in, only I'm allowed to. But to you, to yours, that you are allowed to, apparently it's very kal. And therefore, how much more so that I'll be allowed to go into your pocket? Does this kal v'chomer work? No. Why not? Break it. Oh. So first of all, even if it did work, it doesn't make a difference. The Torah said don't steal. So it's not going to help you to come with all the people in the world. The Torah says no, so no. And the kal v'chomer doesn't work because how does it start? And what if to my pocket that you're not allowed to come in? Wait a second. Based on your kal v'chomer, he's also allowed to come into your pocket because just like you are able to go into his pocket, he's allowed to go into your pocket, so the kal v'chomer doesn't even start.
Where does the minhag? Is this like minhag's more powerful than the
And therefore, many object this minhag, a stipler for example, and they did not allow their household members to steal the afikoyma. It comes, I think, from the language of Chazal, choitfin. They snatch, they grab, not goinvim. We, for some reason, changed that word into stealing the afikoyma, but in fact, some did not like it. The idea is to make sure that the kids are up, just like manishtana and all the different things that we do throughout the night, to make sure the kids stay up. That's where it comes from. But, in fact, many Gedolei Yisrael did not like that minhag, but minhag oiker.
How can we explain Yaakov and Esau?
The pasuk explained it. Why do I have to explain it?
No.
David HaMelech said a pasuk. Im naval, tisnabal. Im ikesh, tispatal. With a villain, be villain-like. If Hitler comes and you are able to steal from him in order to save a life, we say, Torah says don't steal. Then it becomes a mitzvah d'oraisa to do it. And the Zohar HaKodesh says in Parshas Vayishlach that everything Yaakov did wasn't for himself. He did it for us, for Klal Yisrael, for future generations. He didn't do anything for himself. What do you think? He had a personal fight with Esav, chas v'shalom, personal fight with Lavan, chas v'shalom. But with a villain, you have to be villain-like, and that is the emes in the Torah.
What about going?
What about going?
No.
Stealing from a goy? Machlokes na Gemara Baba Kama. Is it a derabanon? Is it deoraisa? We paskin. It's also deoraisa to steal from a goy. And not only do you have the issue of stealing, on top of that you have the chilul Hashem, which is the worst avera in the Torah. Lo tignovu. What is it? Why is it in the plural? Should say lo tignov. Why lo tignovu? The Magid Mikelm said, I always wondered about this pasuk, but then I understood. I saw my neighbor that somebody stole her chicken. See, she didn't say anything. She didn't do anything. She just went to her neighbor, to a different neighbor, and stole from her. And when that neighbor got up and saw that something was missing, she went to another neighbor. And then I said, that's how the world works. Reuven steals from Shimon, Shimon steals from Levi. One theft causes many, and therefore, lo tignovu. That's the Magid Mikelm, but the Ibn Ezra Listen to a language of Rishonim. It's so clear, so pashut, so yasha. Ibn Ezra, very few words. Why lo tignovu in the plural? Ki haroi e umacharish gam hu ganav. You saw somebody stealing. Not my business. Why do I have to say something? Why do I have to intervene? You are called a ganav as well. The person who stole is a ganav, and the person who saw and didn't say a word is a ganav as well. Therefore, lo tignovu b'lshon rabim.
Can I just a check that is, you don't cash it and you pass it on to someone else, is that considered stealing?
If you received it, and you are allowed to transfer it to someone else, why would that be stealing? It's different.
It's not, the person gave the check to you, right? He expected the check to be cashed at a certain time.
What if?
Passed down the line, 5 places down.
Why is it different than giving me 100 shekels, $100, and I'm deciding to do whatever I want with them?
No,
if you're giving me a check,
money comes out, the cash is it's cash, right? It doesn't affect your account. 6 months later, 5 months later, the check comes off your account, and you didn't expect it to come off your account. Then you expected it to come out 5 months before that. Did
you warn the person whom you gave it to, you must cash it on this and this date? I don't think you did. I think according to the law in Israel and many other countries, when you give a check, you have 6 months to cash it. That means when I give you a check, I'm expecting this at one point during these 6 months to be cashed by you or by someone else, unless the check is that type of a check that you're not allowed to transfer to someone else. And if you want it, you do 2 lines, it's very easy, and then you're not allowed to pass it to someone else. But if you didn't do that, and legally you're allowed to, there's no problem. And if we're going to go with what you're saying, you're going to have a problem on Purim.
What?
If you're going to go with what you're saying, that you're not allowed to, you're going to have a problem on Purim. Because we, paskin, that you can use a check for matanos la'evyoni because it's viewed as cash. And just like cash I can take and I can give to someone else, so too I can do with a check as long as it's legal. If it's not legal, of course, one will not be allowed to do this. I'm sorry?
Also the Arba Minim.
True. Also to pay for Arba Minim, if it's considered cash, you can pay with a check today, even though he's only going to cash it, I don't know when. But if it's not really cash, and it's only an obligation to give money to the person who gives this piece of paper at one point, so then when you are holding the Arba Minim and Sukkos, you're not holding something which belongs to you. And the Torah requires lachem. Lachem means I already acquired it. If it's cash, I already acquired it.
But could we say that if it's a lot no, then if two people stole together,
that depends on the shaylav. Efshar letzamtzem or ifshar letzamtzem. How did they steal together? Did they grab it at the same time? Maybe one did it before the other. If we go with what we said from the Ibn Ezra, the one who saw this and is silent is also considered a thief, how much more so one who was involved? It's not going to help him. Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky used to tell a story about Rabbi Sol Salanter. Rabbi Sol Salanter, towards the end of his life, used to travel a lot to be mechazek Eden. He used to go to a lot of places. And once he came to Germany. And he was hosted by someone, and he says to this guy, listen, he wasn't feeling well. If I become very, very sick on Shabbos, there is no heter to violate Shabbos to save me. System, what? Can violate Shabbos to save any Yid? How much more so the Rav? What does the Rav mean? He says, listen, there's a problem. In Yoreh Deah Siman Kuf Nun Ches, Seif Aleph, Shulchan Aruch Paskins, based on the Gemara, that if Ro'ei Behema fell into a pit, you do not help them come out. Ro'ei Behema, Behema Daka goes all over and grazes in other people's fields, and therefore the Ro'im, the shepherds, are considered Gazlanim. The Chazaka is, they're Gazlanim. So if you see a shepherd falling into a pit, don't help him. So Gazlanim, you can't save, and you can't violate Shabbos to save a Gazlan. So system, why is the Rav saying that about himself? The Rav is a Gazlan? Chas v'shalom. He says, I think so. So why? He said, look, the whole world views me as a big tzaddik, a kadosh, a talmid chochem, and they come to me and they give me money. Now I know the truth. So it comes out that their money is stolen in my heart. I'm holding money that doesn't belong to me. I'm a Gazlan. If I'm a Gazlan, I'm no different than that shepherd that you're not allowed to save on Shabbos, and therefore do not violate Shabbos to save me. This person didn't know what to do. On one hand, maybe he's right. It's Rabbi Sol Salanta. He knows what he's saying. On the other hand, it can't be that he's right. So he sent a shayla to Rabbi Yitzchak Elchanan Spector of Kovna, who was his father-in-law. And he said to him, what do I do with this? Rabbi Yitzchak sends him back a letter, a telegram. Of course you should violate Shabbos to save Rabbi Sol Salanter. Rabbi Sol Salanter is saying this because he is such a humble person, but of course, for personal debt, you have to save it. Just you see the sensitivity of other people's money, OPM, be very, very, very sensitive with that money, and the sensitivity of Rabbi Sol Salanter, the observance of Shabbos.
Could we also not say that with sport in the plural of the term, love can open to, I think what Mr. Salanter said, that the two kinds of stealing. One is stealing of cash or tangible object, and there's also stealing, for example, if you make...
Gnevas das.
No, if you make your Shabbat clock at 12 o'clock, at 1 o'clock in the morning, and there's a lady just giving birth in the apartment next to you, and that's also...
Very good, but you can go easier. Gnevas das. A tangible thing, the real stealing, and Gnevas das. And by the way, there's a Tosefta and Baba Kama, I think Gimel Zayin, that says, the Shiva Mine Ganavim Hem. There's 7 types of thieves in the world. There's a guy who sells you strawberries. That's the example of the Sefta. He puts the most beautiful ones on the top, the bottom, don't ask. But you don't see it. It's not a see-through basket. So you come and you take the strawberries. You come home and you find out it's garbage. That's called a Ganav. There's a Ganav that sees his friend, and he knows his friend has a flight in 1 hour. He says, why don't you have lunch with me? Come have a big lunch for you. He knows he can't because he has a flight to catch. There's a Ganav. This is another example of the Sefta. You host someone, and then you say, you know what? You're such an important guest. I'm going to open up the bottle of wine that I've been saving for 35 years just in your honor. It's not true. You've been planning to open it already. You told your wife in the morning that you're going to open it. Why? Gnevas das. Says the Sefta, Shiva Minei Ganavim Hem, the 7 types of thieves. The worst is Gnevas das. What did you say?
Yeah, coming back to the Arba Minim. If one buys the Arba Minim just the day before, the banks are closed, gives a check, still Shelachem?
Good. So some opinions are that it is considered cash when you can do something with it. Not necessarily going to a bank, if it's a type of a check that you can transfer. So you can give it to someone else. So that's considered cash. Or you can go to the store and buy something with a check. If all stores are closed, if legally you're not allowed to transfer that check and the banks are closed, some opinions hold that it's just an obligation. It's a shtar, saying one day I owe you the amount that's written in the check. Some hold that today it's mamish considered cash. Because when I give you cash, 100 shekels, and right now all the stores are closed and the banks are closed, what can you do with that? So it's not so different. So it's a big machloikes that started years ago. Today I think more opinions lean towards saying that's mamish considered cash.
First of all, today you can deposit a 24/7 through a phone. Secondly,
but when you deposit it, sometimes the money is not considered yours. It depends. Depends if it's an Israeli bank or an American bank. The money is considered already yours. Not so pashut.
my next point, it takes 3 days anyway. Even if it was open, it takes 3 days.
But the fact that you can do something with it, it's viewed as if it's cash. You can do the same with cash. You can go to the ATM and deposit it late at night, but it's not really going to count until tomorrow, so there's no difference between that. But we have to go back to the story I just said. If a Bisol Salanter holds, by the way, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Retzon Yerei Avyase, and what happened is, he actually didn't become sick that Shabbos. Motzei Shabbos he became sick and he passed away before the following Shabbos. They didn't have to violate Shabbos to save him. Retzon Yerei Avyase. But if a Bisol felt that he's a Ganav, so why didn't he not give back the money to the people that gave him the money? You hold that it's Gezer, right? So give it back. Oh, I think that it could be that he felt there's going to be a bizayon to Torah, a bizayon to all the yeshivas. Maybe people will think, oh, he's such an anav, and he didn't want to be viewed as an anav. Or people will say, wow, what fake anava. He had a lot of calculations. It's a musar, it's a bisor salanter. It could be that he knew the truth. He was a giant of all giants, not just in Musa. He was brilliant beyond belief. And he felt that if he will go to a Beis Din, if this will go to Beis Din, the Beis Din will rule against him because they wouldn't understand his deep brilliancy, and they will say, you're right. Not Amaretz, but not at the level that people are viewing you, and therefore you have to give him back the money. But the truth is, they're wrong. But the truth is, Allah has decreed according to the Dayan, based in down here, because Eno la Dayan, Ela Masha Einav Royos. So technically speaking, even though he should really hold the money because it is his, the people are right, but in Beis Din, maybe they would paskin that he has to return it. Maybe it's a little similar to the Chazon Ish. There's a bracha when you see a Talmid Chochem. Not Stam, a Talmid Chochem. A Talmid Chochem. Godel Ador. Baruch Ata Hashem, Shechalak Mechochmaso Liyereav. Many times. I was by Reb Chaim Kanievsky, by Reb Elioshiv. Same thing. When people used to say it over them, they used to say, Baruch Levatala, say Baruch Shem Kod Malchus Le'olam Vayit. Many times. Reb Chaim said that the Chazon Ish used to do the same thing. He used to say, if you're asking me, should I say a bracha? No, don't say it. It's a bracha levatala. But if one would say a bracha near the Chazon Ish, he would actually answer Amen. Even though he held the person is wrong, but in his eyes, he's doing the right thing. He sees a person that the world says, he's a Chazon Ish, he's a Talmid Chochem, like that level. So he's not doing a bracha levatala, and you can say Amen. It's the same thing. The people think that they can give me money, but lemaise I think it's not. But it's just like saying Amen to that bracha, I'm taking the money. Maybe. I don't know. But you see from this story the sensitivity to other people's money and to Shabbos observance. Based on this story, there's a pasuk in Tehillim, Perek Lamed Zayin. Lo yve rasha velo yeshalem. Says the Tiferes Yisrael in Pirkei Avos, in his Yachin, Perush, Perek Beis. Order of words is wrong. Lo yve rasha velo yeshalem? Ma pitom. How should we rewrite this pasuk? Lo yve velo yeshalem gets the title Rasha. You're calling him a Rasha at the beginning? Lo yve rasha velo yeshalem? Wait. He's supposed to return the money next year. So lo yve velo yeshalem. Call him a Rasha. You're calling him lo yve rasha. Why? Says Tiferes Yisrael, you know who gets this title? A person who borrows money and he has no idea where he's going to pay from. He is called a loive rasha right now. And we don't wait to see maybe he's going to have the money or not. When you take somebody else's money and you have no idea where you're planning to return that money from, one can get that title rasha from the get-go. That's frightening. With that, maybe we can understand a maisa in the Gemara. Yuma daflamed heyamud beis. The Gemara tells a story about Hillel. Hillel was very, very poor. He earned $1 every single day. The entrance fee to the Beis Medrash was 50 cents. So he would actually take 50 cents from his $1 and give to the guard at the entrance to be able to sit and learn. And the rest, 50 cents, he would use for his household members. One day, it was Friday, it was the month of Tevet, very cold outside, and Hillel didn't earn anything. But he desired to hear Divrei Elokim Chaim. It's the language of the Gemara there. I think it's the only time in Shas Bavli that we find this. Divrei Elokim Chaim, because Shmaya and Naftalion are going to sit there and learn Torah. Can't miss it. So what did he do? Can't enter without paying. So he climbed on the roof, and he's listening in thirst. The Divrei Torah, Divrei Elokim Chaim. But then it's so cold and it starts snowing. And the snow piled up on him to the height of 3 amos. Shmaya and Avtalion Shabbos morning come into shul, and Shmaya says to Avtalion, Shmaya, my brother, tell me, how come it's so dark here today? Normally there's a lot of light. Let's look. Oh, look! It's an image of a person. It's a guy upstairs. How can it be? They go upstairs and they find that at Hillel. They bring him down, they bathe him, and they put him next to the fire, and they say a language. Ra'ui hu zeh lechalel alav es Shabbos. A person like this is worthy that we should violate Shabbos to save him. What does that mean? And if it was someone else, he is not worthy. Is there a Yid that is not worthy to be Mechalel Shabbos? Based on what we said, yes. Hillel was not a Ganav. Hillel was not a Loive Rasha. He saw that he didn't have money. So he could have come and said to the guard, I'll pay you later. He could have gone to one of his friends, do me a favor, can I borrow 50 cents? but he has no idea where he's going to pay from, where he's going to pay back. And therefore Hillel says, if I don't have, I don't borrow. And if I don't borrow, I don't have what to pay with, I'm going on the roof. So Hillel was careful with other people's money, therefore he's not called a gazlan. If he's not called a gazlan, ra'ui hu zeh lechalel alav es haShabbos.
You've got to pay to come to whatever it is, an event. You find a way to climb on the and hear it. You're finding a way not to pay. I don't want everyone to start climbing on roofs to just. You understand? You're gaining without paying. Why is that allowed?
Because he wasn't using.
First of all, part of what you're using is I'm allowing you to sit and enjoy the air conditioning, the light, the comfortable chair. Torah should be spread out. We would love for you to listen, and I don't mind that the whole place around this shul, people stand right outside the windows, even if they didn't pay the entry fee. We don't mind. But you're paying for a certain level of decor that is here. We want certain individuals here. But the fact that you're outside, we're supposed to ve'ha'amidu talmidim harbe. That is from the side of Shmaya and Avtar and everybody in. But from the side of Hillel, there's no question. Because for Hillel, it's a pikuach nefesh hayla. The Rogatchover learned when he was an avil. Shulchan Aruch decrees la'alacha, one is not allowed to learn when he's a mourner. So why was he allowed to? There's a Yerushalmi. The Yerushalmi says, it's brought in the Beis Yosef. If a person is lahut achar divrei Torah, he's allowed to learn when he's a mourner. If he can't live without it, he's allowed to learn. The Rogatchover couldn't live without Torah even for one day, not for a week. Hillel can't learn without it's no life. It's a pikuach nefesh l'shayla. So for Hillel, there's no problem. Pikuach nefesh for him. And for everybody else in the shul, there's also no problem. So Hillel, he's allowed.
Even in the Oned?
If it's a pikuach nefesh shayla, it's not one of the three cardinal sins, right? So normally we say no. And there's many things that you can learn as an oinen or as an avil. Hilchos avelus. Bad things in the prophecies of Yirmiyah and Perek Gimel of Moed Katan, all the lists that one is allowed to learn. And Tisha B'Av, one is allowed to learn. But if that's not enough, and it's pikuach nefesh shayla, im hayalahut achar divrei Torah, that's Hillel.
Surely, even if he's in the Shabbat and break Shabbat to save his life.
Yeah, but not for a gazlan.
Even if he's a goy.
But not for a gazlan.
Sorry?
For a goy, you're not allowed to. Except for today, since there's an Eva, and we're afraid that if we're not going to save them, they're not going to do the same for our people. That's with Eva. So now we go to B'tzedek Tishpot Amitecha. Judge people favorably. Easier said than done. In order to be really good at it, you need to practice. So let's try. There was an Adam Gadol Admeod. His name was Rabbi Moshe Yaakov Rabikov. Everybody used to call him the Sandlar, the shoemaker. He was born, Goyish account, 1873, and passed away, Goyish account, Letautam, 1966. The Chazon Ish and the Imrei Emes used to go visit him. So you understand, if the Chazon Ish goes to visit someone, we're talking about the highest level. He was a giant Mekubal, wrote great Chidushim, not the Imrei Emes, I'm sorry, the Beis Yisrael. The Beis Yisrael, the Ger Rebbe, and the Chazon Ish used to live in Yafo, and they used to go visit him. Fine. Reuven goes to his friend's Shimon's wedding. Shimon is marrying off his son, and Reuven goes to the wedding, and he sits there, and lo and behold, the Sandlar walks in the middle of the wedding. It's like, wow. Imagine, Reb Chaim Kanievsky is walking into your friend's wedding. So, well, this is great. Maybe I'll be able to get a bracha from him. And while he's admiring his presence, the shoemaker, the Sandlar, walks in and sits right next to Reuven. It's like, wow, I just won the lottery. Gewaldig. After 2 minutes, he looks at him and he says to him, Rebbe, maybe the Rebbe can say, Advar Chizu. Give me something that I'll be able to carry with me throughout life. Sometimes there are challenging times. Give me something that I should be able to be mischazik with, I should carry with. The Sandlar, who was known as a very, very humble person, looks at him and he says, you want chizuk from me? Do you know where I come from? The town back in Russia. There was a guy who would be willing to pay 10,000 rubles just to see me. And you want chizuk from me? So he says to himself, I can't believe it. I can't believe it. They say this guy is so humble. What do I do with this? I can't believe it. And while he's saying this to himself, again he looks at him and he says, so you want chizuk from me, eh? I'm telling you, where I come from, there was a guy who would pay 10,000 rubles just to see me. And you want chizuk from me? This guy starts thinking, am I allowed to say this to others? Lashon hara. But then again, people hold of him that, this is unbelievable. Who says this? Rabbi say, judging people favorably. Who can finish the end of the story? Judge people favorably, especially Talmid Chochem. While Reuven is going crazy, he looks at him again and he says, I'm telling you, back in my town where I come from, there was a guy who was blind. He would be willing to pay even 10,000 rubles even to see just a person like me. So you want chizuk from me? You got up this morning. Your eyes were working? Your shoulders were fine? Digestive system? Your brain is functioning? Why do you need chizuk from me? You're a walking chizuk machine! Eov already said it. I can see HaKadosh Baruch Hu just looking at my flesh. Why do you need chizuk from me? Judging people favorably. Bali Amusa say, you know why sometimes people have crooked machshava. Crooked machshava. And you say to yourself, what's up with that? Svara akuma, crooked machshava. Bali Amusa say, you know why it was created? To be able to judge people favorably, because sometimes you need to really stretch your imagination in order to be able to judge people favorably. Pesach, 3 weeks ago, right? It's a big shtibel, 25 different minyanim at the same time. So there's a minyan, small minyan, 15 guys. Comes time for laning, so the guy goes around, do you know how to lane? No. Do you know how to lane? No. Do you know how to lane? No. So the guy says, don't worry, I'll find someone. And he goes out and he starts looking between the minyanim. Do you know how to lane? No. Do you know how to lane? No. Finally he sees this young guy, looks 17 years old. Can you lane for us? So he says, Im kesef ani koreh. There's money, I'm reading. The Gabbai was so upset. Chutzpah! 17 years old to ask for money for a 15-second laning. How many psukim is that? Who does that? Do you ever pay for a Monday or a Thursday morning? There's no such thing. Who does that? Chol HaMoed. Chutzpah! He said to him, you know what? Even if I don't find anyone else, I'm not calling you. Don't need your favors. Thank you very much. And he continues going around and asking people until finally, Baruch Hashem, he found someone and they lane. Great. At the end of davening, he comes out and he happens to see this guy still there. So he goes over to him and he yells at him, you chutzpahdik! You want money from us? Give you the chutzpah to say this. He says, I asked you for money? He says, yes. You know, it was just 25 minutes ago. You don't remember? You said, Im kesef ani koreh. If you give me money, I'll read. That's not what I meant. The third day of Chol HaMoed, the laning is Im kesef talve et ami. Im kesef, it's that laning, I can read it because my bar mitzvah parsha. The other lanings, I don't know, I'm sorry, but I never intended to ask you any money. Betzedek tishpot amisecha. He's a Rosh Yeshiva, a giant Rosh Yeshiva, Meretz Yisrael, I'm not going to tell you the name, who goes to Chutz La'aretz, and he happened to be davening Shachris with a very famous Rebbe. He noticed that the Rebbe was pulling on Tefillin de Rabbeinu Tam in the middle of Chazar HaShashatz. The Mishnah Berurah already yells at that. You want to put Tefillin de Rabbeinu Tam? You're a tzaddik. Great. Don't do it in Chazar HaShashatz. That's not what it's meant for. It's meant for you to listen to the Chazan. But that's what this Rebbe did. At the end of davening, this big Rosh Yeshiva goes over to the Rebbe and he says to him, you know, you're not allowed to do this. And he shows him the Mishnah Berurah and he says, you're not allowed to put Tefillin Rabbeinu Tam in the middle of Chazar HaShashatz. So the Rebbe says, listen with all due respect, Mishnah Berurah, Avoisai HaKedoshim, that's their minhag, this is what they used to do. The Rosh Yeshiva looks at him and he says to him, Avoseicha hayu reshoim. 20 years they didn't speak because of this. 20 years. My holy forefathers were Reshaim? 20 years they didn't speak to him. After 20 years, they happened to be in the same wedding. So the Rosh Yeshiva sends some of his Talmidim, and the Rebbe sends some of his Hasidim to try and resolve things. And the Rosh Yeshiva says, try to tell him, that, I don't know why he doesn't want to speak to me. 20 years, I didn't do anything. And they come back, what do you mean? You called the Rebbes before him, Rishai, wicked people. How can you do that? I called him Rishai? Chas v'shalom. So he goes over to the Rebbe, he says, I never called your Avosecha Reshaim. I said Rashaim with an Aleph. Avosecha, your forefathers, were allowed to put the tefillin on because they're a great tzaddikim. I can't judge him. You shouldn't do it because the Mishnah Berurah says no. He said Rashaim with an Aleph. He heard Reshaim with an Ayin. 20 years they didn't speak. Reb Gershon Lapian was the grandson of Rebbe Lapian, big posek in London. He passed away recently, a few years ago. Yeah, the grandson of Rebbe Lapian. Big posek in London. So he once walks in the middle of streets of London, and he's walking with his wife. And he goes over to a married woman in the middle of the street, and he says to her, wow, your shaitel is gorgeous. What a beautiful shaitel you have. It looks so good on you. Wow. And the Talmid Chacham who heard it was there so upset. What a breach of tznius. In the middle of the street to go to a married lady, and by the way, your wife is right next to you. How can you do that? So he went over to Reb Gershon and said to him, what are you doing? You can't do that. Reb Gershon says to him, do you know, it's been 20 years that I've been working on this lady to start covering her hair. Last week she started, finally. This is the first time I'm seeing her since. I had to compliment her on how great her shaitel looks. Sometimes we need to stretch our imagination because the Torah commands, "B'tzedek tishpot amitecha."
Isn't it how on the roads? On the roads of Israel and the driving of other people, "B'tzedek tishpot amitecha."
No problem. My kids already know. You know how many doctors are in Israel? You know how many women are going to give birth? This guy's a doctor is going to save a life. Or it's a woman driver, she's going to give birth. Pashut, no? But Lemaise, how do you do it? Did you hear what he said to me? Did you see what she did to me? How can you judge favorably? Reb Dov Yaffe said, Gewaldik. Did you ever lose your phone? Your car keys? Oy. You can't find them. So what do? Start looking. First you look where you thought that you actually lost them. And you look, and you look, and you look, but it's not there. So you expand the circle where you're looking, and you go to places where it doesn't even make sense. What do I have to lose? What do I have to lose? Maybe I'll find it. You don't find it. So then you go back to where you think you lost it, and you look again. And you call people to help you, but you don't find it. So again, you go to crazy places where it's not shayach. But who knows? What do I have to lose? Says Reb Dov Yaffe, if you really want to find a way to judge people favorably, treat it as a lost item and start looking in crazy and remote places. You will find. It's too hard for you? Call someone to help you.
I heard on the ship of Favorably on this topic, and it brings us to more where he already touched, several series of things favorably.
Shabbos Kuf Rav Zayin.
So he said from here you learn that the mitzvah is not just to judge favorably, just say, I judge favorably. You have to think of a ma'isa, of speak it out, that this person must be that he's going to the doctor.
Sefer Chinuch already said, Mitzvah Tet Zayin, and many other places, the exteriority awakens the interiority. Verbalize it. I think 6.5 years ago, Parsha Lech Lecha, in Petach Tikva. It was Erev Parsha Lech Lecha, I think it was a Thursday. A guy gets a phone call in the morning. Your son was in a terrible car accident, and he's rushed to the Beilinson hospital. Beilinson is the hospital in Petach Tikva, and he is in bad shape. So he runs over to the hospital, and in fact his son is in bad shape. And the doctors are telling him, there's only one doctor in Eretz Yisrael that can operate on your son's head, but he doesn't work in this hospital. We're trying to reach him, but we can't. Maybe if you have connections, try to get a hold of this doctor. And this guy has a lot of connections. And he starts calling. Baruch Hashem, he gets the phone number, the cell phone of this doctor. And he calls him and says, "Doctor, listen, this is a situation. The doctors here are saying that you are the only one who can operate on my son. Can you come in and help?" And the doctor says, "Yes, Yimitz Hashem, I'm in the middle of something. As soon as I'm done, I'll be there." He says, "Thank you so much. Yasher koyach, doctor." Half an hour later, doctor is still not there. An hour later, doctor is still not there. He picks up the phone again. He says, "Doctor, can you come? The doctors are not sure my son is going to make it. Will you be able to come?" And the doctor says, "Yes, as soon as I'm done, I'll be there." "Thank you very much, doctor." He hangs up. 2 hours, 2.5 hours. 3 hours later, the doctor is still not there. He picks up the phone again. "Doctor, can you come? It's life and death." The doctor says, "Yes, as soon as I'm done, I'll be there." He says, "Shkoyach, but please." 4 hours, 4.5 hours. 5 hours later, the doctor's still not there. He picks up the phone again. "Doctor, can you make it? My son, I'm not sure he's going to make it." The doctor says, "Yes, Yimitz Hashem, I'll be there as soon as I'm done." 5.5 hours, not there. After 6 hours, finally, the doctor drives in. He goes right next to the entrance to the hospital. He comes in, doesn't say hello. Not to the doctors, not to the nurses, not to the father, walks right into the operating room. Performs the surgery, finishes the operation, and he comes out. Now, normally, if there are any doctors in the crowd, the doctor comes out and goes over to the family and tells them what he thinks, how it went. Nothing. He doesn't say goodbye. Not to the doctors, not to the staff, to the nurses, and not to the family. He doesn't look at the father. He passes right by him. At this point, the father was fuming. And when he passed by him, walking out of the hospital, the father started yelling at him. "Doctor, if it would have happened to your son, you would also delay 6 hours." And the doctor continues to walk outside, not looking back, goes into his car and driving away. The father was so upset, but only for a few hours. Because a few hours later he found out that morning there was another car accident. And this doctor's son was in that accident and he died. And when he called the doctor the first time, he was in the middle of the preparations for the levaya of his only son. And when he called the second and third time, it was in the middle of the levaya. And instead of going home to sit shiva for his only son, he came to operate on his own son, and that's why he understood why he didn't say hello, because he's a mourner. He can't say hello to people, so he ran back home to the shiva. How much should we judge people favorably? What does one get? What can one get if he judges people favorably? Listen to a medrash, Psikta de Rav Kahana. Teida lecha, you should know, shekol yamav shel Moshe lo nikra isha Elokim. A man of God. Why did he get this title? Isha Elokim. Ad shelimed sanegoria al klal Yisrael. He judged people favorably. He gets this unbelievable title, Ish HaElokim. So there's nothing greater than that, right? Is there anything greater than judging people favorably? Yes. Don't judge. Who asked you to judge? Al tadin et Adam. Ad shetagia limkoimu. Chazal say, don't judge people until you reach their place. You will never be able to reach somebody else's place. Never. Even if he's your age and he looks like you, the same height, you don't come from the same background, and even if you do, one little incident in his past may change everything. His friends, his teachers, you have no idea, no concept, no clue. You will never be able to reach somebody else's shoes, and therefore don't judge. If you're forced to judge and somebody puts a gun to your head, then comes this new instruction, judge people favorably, but you don't have to judge, and that's much better. And if we have to judge people favorably, how much more so we should judge HaKadosh Baruch Hu favorably? Who says this? The Pasuk itself. B'tzedek tishpot amitecha. Who is your friend? Judge your friend favorably. Says the Moshe of Zkenim on the Torah. That's Baalei Toises. Amitecha, your friend? That's HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There's a Pasuk in Mishlei, Perek Chav Zayin, I think Perek Pasuk Yud, the Pasuk says, Reacha v'rea avicha al ta'azov. Don't forsake, don't leave your friend and your father's friend. Rashi on that pasuk says, Reacha, that's HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shenikra Rea LiYisrael, he is called our friend. Verea Avicha, and your father's friend, that is HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that he is called a father, a friend of your fathers. So if you need to judge people favorably, your friends, how much more so HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Moshe Avskeim Torah says, that's the reason we say, Ve'ata tzadik al kol haba aleinu. You're matzdik on you, the din, that's part of B'tzedek Tishpot Amitecha, and that's just a remarkable insight. The Pasuk says, Ochiach tochiach es amisecha. You surely rebuke your friend. Remember, 9-10 years ago, I davened mincha with Reb Chaim Kanievsky, small minyan in his house. He wasn't feeling well, so a very small minyan. At one point, one of his grandsons, who was davening right next to him, sat down, chazar hashatz, and I guess he was a little tired. So he did this, understand that. Reb Chaim Kanievsky touches his shoulders lightly, and he says, no, there's no tachanun today, I'm a sandak. Instead of saying, we don't sleep in the middle of chazar hashatz, he told him there's no tachanun, as if he's about to do tachanun. You should know how to rebuke. Surely rebuke your friend, but really know how to rebuke.
Question, do you ever find sleeping in the middle of hashatz?
Betach, letzorech your muta. To save somebody from doing something wrong, why not?
Even most of your own kids.
What's that?
Even most of your own kids, how you do that.
Right? There's much more to speak about Ve'ahavta l'recha kamoicha, but I guess maybe we'll save it for a different time in Mitzvah Shem. But Patur belo chlum I efshar. When Reb Ezra Atiyah, the Rosh Yeshiva of Porat Yosef, passed away, there was a whole big machlokes. Who's going to be the next Rosh Yeshiva? Is it going to be Rabbi Ben Zion Abba Shaul, or Rabbi Yehuda Tzadka? Two giants of giants. But this was a very strange machlokes. Normally it's, I should be the Rosh Yeshiva. No. I should be the Rosh Yeshiva. This was a strange machlokes. But Yehuda Tzadka said to Rabbi Zion Abba Shaul, you should be the Rosh Yeshiva. And Rabbi Zion Abba Shaul says, no, you should be the Rosh Yeshiva. And they argued. So at one point, Rabbi Zion Abba Shaul says to Rabbi Tzadka, why should I be the Rosh Yeshiva? He says, because not only you're a Magid Shir here like me, you're also a Poisek. So it's only right that you should be the Rosh Yeshiva. So he says to him, you're calling me a Poisek? So I'm paskening that you're going to be the Rosh Yeshiva. Lemaise, at the end, both became the Rosh Yeshiva. With Shalom and Achdus, Ava, Vereus. Ve'ahavta l'recha kamocha. Porat Yosef. There's really so much. But Patur belo chlum I efshar. Maybe. One more thing. Mipnei seva takum. Ve'adarta pnei zaken. Literally, what does that mean? Mipnei seva takum. Mipnei seva takum. Stand up. An old person came in. The Zohar in Pinchas Reish Chav Zayin Amud Beis in Bereishis Yud Gimel Amud Aleph, he elaborates a little more. The Zohar changes the meaning completely by adding one word. Mipnei seva takum. Don't read it like that. Mipnei seva dilach takum. Takum lihiyos tov. Before you become old, takum lihiyos tov, do tshuva. It's great to do tshuva at any age, even when you're 119. You know, by the way, what do you wish a person on his 120th birthday? Have a good day. So even that day, one can do tshuva and it's accepted. But obviously, it's not eino doime, one who does tshuva in a much younger age. So says the Zohar, mipnei seva dilach, before you become that old person, takum lihiyot tov. Mipnei seva takum. Ve'adarta pnei zaken is not just an instruction to rise for old people to do tshuva. It also entails a remez for shnai mikra ve'echad targum. What's the name of Danino, right? Of Danino. Chavai is not here. Shnai mikra ve'echad targum is a great mitzvah. Brachos davches, we learn that what's the reward? Ma'arichin lo yamavu shenoisef, longevity. אז פסקין להלוכה, שולחן אורך אור החיים ריש פ"ה, לאוילם, ישלים עדב פרש יוסף עם הציבור, מעריכין לו ימו ושנויסם. Where does it say this in the Torah? Right here. מפני סייבה תקום והדרת, ראשי תיבוס, the acronym is Shemos. Shemos is Shnai Mikol ve'echad Targum. If you do that, you're going to become that Seva. You're going to reach that old age. However, what's the Soifei Tevos? The last letters of each of these words? Misa. Because Miklal Hen Ani Shomea Lav. If Shnai Mikol ve'echad Targum gives you longevity, Chalila, the opposite can also happen with one who doesn't do it. And therefore, Mipnei Seva Takum has a lot of meanings to it. By the way, why do we stand up for a Sefer Torah? We understand we have to stand up for an old person. Fine. If Talmid Chochem, also great. Why do you stand up for a Sefer Torah? One of the Rishonim, it's called Sefer HaKushios, mind-boggling Chiddush. And in Os Kuf Vav he says, Mipnei Seva Takum, Machmas Kvod Zkeino, Hachanami Shehi Zkeina. The Torah is considered very old because the Torah came before the world, Taf Kuf Ayin Daled generations. 974 generations before the world came. It's the blueprint to the world. The Torah was already here. So you have no one older than the Torah, and that's why we stand for the Torah. A remarkable Chiddush. The Malbim has a tremendous Chiddush as well. Ve'hadarta pnei zaken. The Malbim brings a Rashba. That the Rashba learned from this Musar. What is Vehadarta Pnei Zaken? That the Zaken himself is also obligated in this mitzvah. Lehader Pnei Ziknasoy. In other words, V'maisim naim umeshubachim. The Gemara says in Sukkah Nun Gimel Amud Aleph that you should be able to say, like they said, Ashrei Ziknuseinu shelo bisha et. Baruch Hashem that we reach an old age and we're not embarrassed with what we did when we were a little younger. So vehadarta pnei zaken, meaning you yourself should be mehader your face when you reach the old age by doing Torah, mitzvos, and ma'asim tovim. Yehi ratzon sheyeh chelkeinu imayim. Good Shabbos.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.